Chapter 1. I wasn't supposed to be there. The emergency room smelled like bleach and desperation, and I'd been standing near the vending machines for 20 minutes, pretending I had somewhere else to be. My shift didn't start for another hour, but the apartment had felt too small that morning to full of my own thoughts, too empty of answers. I worked registration, not triage. I filed paperwork and smiled at people who were having the worst days of their lives. I was good at it, good at being invisible when it mattered. But then I heard him. "Excuse me, miss." The voice was small, careful, the kind of careful that children learn when they've been disappointed too many times. I turned. He couldn't have been more than 7. Dark hair that needed cutting, clothes that had been washed so many times, the fabric looked thin as tissue paper. His eyes were too old for his face, and in his hands, he held a piece of bread, not fresh bread. The kind that came in a plastic bag with a discount sticker, edges gone hard, spotted with that greenish tint that meant it had already started to turn. "Mommy hasn't eaten," he said. "Can you share this?" My heart stopped, just stopped. I crouched down, eye level with him, and my voice came out softer than I meant it to. "Where's your mommy, sweetheart?" He pointed toward the waiting area. A woman sat slumped in a plastic chair, her face pale, one hand pressed against her side. Even from here, I could see the tremor in her shoulders, the way she held herself, like something inside her was breaking. "She says her stomach hurts," the boy whispered. "But we can't. We don't have." He didn't finish. He didn't have to. I knew what he meant. No insurance, no money, no options. I should have taken him to registration, should have followed protocol, filled out forms, let the system do what the system does. Instead, I stood up and walked them both straight past the desk. "Come with me," I said. That's how it started. By the time the attending physician saw her, the woman Maria was barely conscious. Burst appendix. Another few hours and she would have been gone. The boy sat in the hallway outside surgery, still holding that piece of bread. I sat with him. I didn't ask permission. Didn't check with my supervisor. I just sat down on the cold linoleum floor and waited. "What's your name?" I asked. "Matteo." "That's a strong name." He nodded, solemn. "My papa chose it. Before he didn't finish that sentence either. I wanted to tell him it would be okay. That his mother would survive. That everything would be fine. That the world wasn't as cruel as it seemed in that moment. But I'd worked in hospitals long enough to know better than to make promises I couldn't keep. So instead, I said, "You're very brave, Matteo." He looked at me then, really looked at me. And I saw something flicker in his eyes. Not hope exactly. Something quieter. Something that hurt more. "Are you going to make us leave?" he asked. "No," I said. "I'm not." I didn't see him walk in. I felt him. The air changed. That's the only way I can describe it. Like the temperature dropped 10 degrees. Like the fluorescent lights dimmed. Like every survival instinct I had suddenly woke up and started screaming. I looked up. He stood at the end of the hallway. And everything about him was wrong for a hospital. The tailored black suit that probably cost more than my car. The way he held himself, utterly still, utterly controlled. The 2 men flanking him, both watching the corridor like they expected something to come at them from the shadows. But it was his face that made my breath catch. Not handsome. Too severe for that. Sharp jaw, dark eyes that seemed to see everything and give away nothing. A mouth that looked like it had forgotten how to smile. Dangerous. The word whispered through my mind before I could stop it. He walked toward us, footsteps silent on the linoleum. And I realized with a jolt that Matteo had gone rigid beside me. The man stopped 3 feet away. For a long moment, he just looked at the boy. Then his gaze shifted to me, and I felt the full weight of his attention like a physical thing. "Matteo," he said quietly. His voice was dark, smooth, the kind of voice that could order someone's death without raising above a whisper. The boy stood up slowly. "Uncle Dante, uncle." Oh God. The man Dante crouched down, and suddenly he wasn't towering anymore. He was eye level with Matteo, and something in his expression shifted, softened, just barely. "Your mother?" he asked. "Surgery," Matteo whispered. They're fixing her." Dante nodded once. Then he stood and turned those dark eyes back to me. "You helped them." It wasn't a question. "I did my job," I said. "No," he stepped closer. And I could smell him now. Expensive cologne. Something with cedar and smoke. "You broke protocol. You prioritized a patient with no ability to pay. You took a risk. My pulse hammered. She was dying. Yes, he said softly. She was. He reached into his jacket, and every muscle in my body tensed, but he only pulled out a business card. Black, embossed silver lettering. He held it out to me. If the hospital gives you trouble, he said, call this number. I didn't take it. I don't need yes, he interrupted, voice dropping lower. You do. And then he looked at me in a way that made the floor feel unstable beneath my feet. What's your name? I should have lied. Iris, I heard myself say. Iris, he repeated, like he was tasting it. Then he turned and walked away, Mateo's small hand tucked into his. And I stood there in the hallway holding a business card I hadn't agreed to take. On it, just a phone number. And underneath, embossed so faintly I almost missed it. D. Salvatore. Chapter 2. The deputy should have thrown the card away, should have dropped it in the trash the moment he disappeared around the corner, should have pretended the entire encounter never happened. Men like that, men who moved through hospitals with armed shadows and made the air itself feel heavy, weren't the kind you wanted remembering your name. Instead, I slipped it into my pocket. 3 days later, I understood why. Miss Callahan, we need to speak with you. Linda Morrison stood in the doorway of the staff break room. Her expression, carefully neutral in that way that meant nothing good was coming. She was the hospital administrator, the kind of woman who wore her authority like armor and smiled with her mouth but never her eyes. Behind her stood 2 men in suits. Not Dandy's kind of suits. These were cheaper, more rumpled. Government suits. My stomach dropped. Of course, I said, setting down my coffee. My hand was steady. That surprised me. They took me to a conference room on the 3rd floor. Gray walls, fluorescent lights, a table that had seen better days. One of the men closed the door with a soft click that felt louder than it should have. I'm Agent Morrison, the older one said. No relation to Linda apparently. This is Agent Chen. We're with the FBI. FBI. The word sat in the room like a stone. We'd like to ask you about an incident that occurred on Tuesday, Morrison continued. You admitted a patient, Maria Herrera, without proper registration or insurance verification. She was dying, I said. My voice came out calmer than I felt. I did what anyone would have done. You violated hospital protocol, Linda cut in, her tone sharp. You bypassed multiple safeguards designed to let people die in waiting rooms. The words escaped before I could stop them. Morrison held up a hand. We're not here about the hospital's policies, Miss Callahan. We're here about the man who came to see the boy. Dante Salvatore. There it was, the real reason I was sitting in this room. What about him? I asked carefully. Agent Chen leaned forward. He was younger, hungrier. How do you know him? I don't. He gave you his personal contact information, so they'd been watching. Of course they had. He gave me a business card, I said. I didn't ask for it. Have you called the number? No. Have you had any other contact with Salvatore or his associates? No. Morrison's eyes narrowed. Miss Callahan, do you understand who Dante Salvatore is? I said nothing. He's the head of one of the most powerful crime families on the East Coast, Morrison continued. Racketeering, money laundering, suspected involvement in at least a dozen murders. He's dangerous. And now he knows your name. The room felt smaller suddenly, colder. I helped a child, I said quietly. That's all I did. That child is his nephew, Chen said. The son of his deceased brother. And you put yourself directly in Salvatore's line of sight. I didn't know whether you knew or not, doesn't matter. Morrison's voice softened, just slightly. You're on his radar now. Men like Salvatore don't forget favors. And they don't let debts go unpaid. Something cold slid down my spine. We'd like you to help us, Morrison said. There it was. The real reason for this conversation. Help you how? If he contacts you again, we want to know. Anything he says, anyone you see with him, any meetings, any you want me to spy on him. We want you to be a responsible citizen, Chen said. I looked between them. Morrison's face was carefully sympathetic. Chen's was harder, more expectant. Linda sat at the end of the table, silent, watching me like I was a problem she needed to solve. And if I say no? I asked. Then you should be very careful, Miss Callahan, Morrison said quietly. Because whether you help us or not, you're already involved. They let me go 20 minutes later, after I'd promised to think about it and given them my contact information. I walked back to the emergency department on legs that felt disconnected from my body. My supervisor pulled me aside before my shift started. You're on administrative leave, she said. Not unkindly, but not warmly either. Pending review of the Tuesday incident. How long? 2 weeks? Maybe longer. Which meant I wouldn't be getting paid. Which meant I'd be late on rent. Again, I nodded and cleaned out my locker. I made it all the way to my car before the anger hit. Not at Dante Salvatore. Not at the FBI. At the whole goddamn system that let a woman nearly die because she couldn't afford to prove she was sick enough to deserve treatment. At a world where helping someone made you a target instead of a hero. I sat in the driver's seat, hands gripping the steering wheel, and tried to breathe. That's when I saw him. He was leaning against a black Mercedes parked 3 spaces down. Same dark suit, same terrifying stillness. Like he'd been waiting. My heart kicked against my ribs. He pushed off the car and walked toward me. And I had about 3 seconds to decide whether to start the engine and drive away, or roll down the window. I rolled down the window. Dante Salvatore bent down, resting one hand on the roof of my car, and looked at me with those dark, unreadable eyes. The FBI spoke to you, he said, not a question. A statement. How did you? I know everything that happens in this city. His voice was quiet, almost gentle. Especially when it concerns my family. I didn't tell them anything. I know. He studied my face. You lost your job. I'm on leave. You'll be fired within the month. They can't afford the attention. He was probably right. The knowledge sat bitter on my tongue. Why are you here? I asked. Dante was silent for a moment. Then he reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. He set it on the passenger seat. Because you saved Maria's life, he said. And I pay my debts. Then he straightened and walked away, leaving me alone with an envelope I was afraid to open. Inside, I already knew. Would be money. The only question was how much, and what it would cost me. Section 3. The offering $20,000. 20 crisp $100 bills, stacked neatly in the envelope like they were nothing. Like this was pocket change. Like my entire life savings could be counted out in someone's casual gesture of gratitude. I sat in my apartment that night. The money spread across my kitchen table, and tried to make sense of what I was supposed to do with it. I could pay rent for 6 months, could fix my car, could breathe for the first time into years without that constant weight on my chest. That crushing anxiety. That one bad day would send everything crashing down. Blood money. A voice whispered in my head. But Maria was alive. Matteo still had his mother. Was that blood money? Or was it just money? I didn't know anymore. I lasted 4 days before I called the number on the card, not because I wanted to return the money, though I'd told myself that's what I'd do. Not because the FBI had started calling me twice a day, leaving increasingly urgent messages. I called because I woke up at 3 in the morning to the sound of someone trying my door handle, just trying it, not breaking in, not forcing it, just testing. By the time I'd grabbed my phone and crept to the peephole, the hallway was empty. But I'd heard the footsteps walking away, slow, deliberate, the kind of footsteps that wanted to be heard. I stood there in the dark, heart hammering, and knew with absolute certainty that this was a message. The FBI, maybe, trying to scare me into cooperation. Or someone else. Someone who'd heard that Dante Salvatore had given me money and wanted to know why. I pulled out the black business card and dialed. Before I could change my mind, he answered on the first ring. Iris. Just my name. Nothing else. Like he'd been waiting for this call. Someone tried my door, I said. Tonight? Silence. But not empty silence. The kind that felt like violence gathering. Are you hurt? His voice was deadly quiet. No, they left. But what's your address? I hesitated. Giving Dante Salvatore my address felt like crossing a line I couldn't uncross. Iris. Softer now. Your address. I told him. Don't open the door for anyone, he said. I'm sending someone. I don't need you. Called me for a reason. There was something in his voice now, something almost gentle beneath the steel. Let me help. He hung up before I could argue. 20 minutes later, there was a knock at my door. Not the person from before. This knock was firm, professional, announced. I looked through the peephole and saw a woman, mid-30s, dark hair pulled back severely, wearing a leather jacket and an expression that suggested she could kill me 6 different ways without breaking a sweat. Iris Callahan? She called through the door. I'm Sophia. Dante sent me. I opened the door slowly. Sophia swept past me into the apartment, her eyes cataloging everything: exits, windows, sightlines. You live alone? Yes. Locks? Standard deadbolt. She made a disapproving sound and moved to the door, examining the lock with the kind of attention most people reserved for surgery. This wouldn't stop a determined teenager. I'll have someone upgrade it tomorrow. I can't afford it's handled. She turned to face me, and her expression softened slightly. Dante takes care of his people. I'm not his people. You are now. She pulled out her phone, typed something. I'm having someone watch your building tonight. You're safe. I wanted to argue. Wanted to say I didn't need a crime lord's protection, that I could take care of myself, but my hands were still shaking. Why? I asked instead. Why does he care? Sophia studied me for a long moment. You really don't know? Know what? She shook her head slightly. That's something you'll have to ask him yourself. He wants to see you tomorrow. Dinner, 7 o'clock. My stomach flipped. I don't think it's not a request, Iris. But her voice wasn't unkind. Look, I know what you're thinking. That you should stay away. That this is dangerous. That you should just take the money and disappear. That's exactly what I'm thinking. Smart girl. She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. But it's too late for that now. The FBI has marked you. Someone else is watching you. Your only option is to let Dante keep you safe while we figure out who and why. Or I could just leave. Move to another city. Change my name. You could try. Sophia moved toward the door. But men like Dante don't let go of things they consider theirs. And for some reason, he's decided you fall into that category. She left before I could respond. And I stood alone in my apartment, wondering when my life had stopped being mine. I didn't sleep. Instead, I sat by the window and watched the street below. Sure enough, there was a black SUV parked across from my building, engine running. A shadow behind the wheel. Protection. Or surveillance. Maybe both. A T-dawn. I finally moved from the window and found myself staring at the money still on my table. $20,000. A fortune. A chain. I thought about Maria, pale and trembling in that hospital chair. About Matteo, with his expired bread and his two old eyes. About the way Dante had crouched down to his nephew's level. And for just a moment, looked almost human. About the way he'd said my name in the hospital hallway. Like he was memorizing it. About the way he'd known immediately. Without question that I'd lost my job because of him, I picked up one of the $100 bills and held it up to the light, on the back. Barely visible unless you were looking for it. Someone had written in pencil. You were right. She was dying. My breath caught. He'd been there. In that hallway. He'd heard what I said to the FBI. Or worse, he'd had someone listening. I should have been terrified. Instead, I felt something else entirely. Something I didn't have a name for yet. Something that felt dangerously like recognition. Section 4. The dinner dress arrived at noon. I opened the door to find a garment bag hanging from my doorknob. No delivery person in sight. Inside was something I could never afford, deep emerald silk that felt like water against my fingers. Simple but devastatingly elegant. No note. No explanation. Just a dress that would fit me perfectly. He'd guessed my size. Or he'd found out. I wasn't sure which possibility disturbed me more. I should have worn jeans out of spite. Instead, at 6:30, I zipped myself into the emerald silk and tried to pretend my hands weren't shaking. The car arrived exactly at 7. Not the black SUV from last night. This was a town car, sleek and expensive, with a driver who opened the door without speaking and drove through the city like he'd made this route 1,000 times. We didn't go to a restaurant. Of course we didn't. We went to a building in the financial district. All glass and steel and money. The driver led me through a private entrance to an elevator that required a key card. We rose in silence, 43 floors, and when the doors opened, I stepped into a penthouse that took my breath away, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Modern furniture that probably cost more than my entire apartment building. Art on the walls that looked like it belonged in museums. And at the far end, standing by those impossible windows, was Dante. He'd shed his jacket. White dress shirt rolled to his elbows, exposing forearms that were all lean muscle and raised veins. He held a glass of something amber, and when he turned to look at me, something flickered in his eyes. Iris. The way he said my name made my skin feel too tight. You didn't have to send the dress, I said. I wanted to. He set down his glass and moved toward me, and I forced myself not to step back. You look. He stopped. Didn't finish the sentence. Just looked at me like he was trying to solve an equation. Beautiful, he finally said. Quiet, almost reluctant. I didn't know what to say to that. Drink? He offered. Just water. Something that might have been amusement touched his mouth. You don't trust me. Should I? No, he poured water from a crystal pitcher, added ice, brought it to me. Our fingers brushed as I took the glass, and I felt that touch everywhere. You should absolutely not trust me. Then why am I here? Because someone is watching you. And I need to understand why. He gestured to a table set for to by the windows. Real china, real silver, candles that cast soft light across white linens. Intimate, dangerous. I sat because standing felt too vulnerable. Dante took the seat across from me, and for a moment, we just looked at each other. The city sprawled below us, oblivious to whatever was happening in this room. Tell me about Tuesday night, he said. Who tried your door? I don't know. I didn't see them. But you heard them. Yes. What did they sound like? I thought back to those footsteps. Deliberate. Like they wanted me to know they were there. Dandy's jaw tightened. The FBI. How do you? Because I would have sent someone quieter. He leaned back in his chair, and I could see him thinking, calculating. They're trying to scare you into informing. Classic intimidation tactic. Is it working? I asked before I could stop myself. His eyes met mine. Are you scared? Yes. Of them? Or of me? I took a breath. Both. He nodded slowly, like I'd confirmed something he already knew. Good. Fear keeps you careful. Keeps you alive. A woman appeared from somewhere I hadn't even heard her approach and began serving food. Pasta that smelled like heaven. Wine I wouldn't drink. Salad that looked like art. We ate in silence for a while. I tried not to think about how normal this felt. How easy it would be to forget what he was. Why did you help Maria? Dante asked suddenly. I looked up. Because she was dying. That's what you do. Save people. I try, even when it costs you everything. It wasn't a question, but I answered anyway. Yes. He set down his fork. My brother Matteo's father died 3 years ago. Car accident. At least, that's what the police report said. I stayed quiet, sensing he needed to say this. It wasn't an accident, Dante continued. His voice had gone flat, emotionless. It was a message. From a rival family. They wanted me to know I wasn't untouchable. I'm sorry, I whispered. Don't be. He looked at me, and there was something raw in his eyes now. I destroyed them. Every single person involved. I burned their operations to the ground and made sure they understood what happens when you touch my family. I should have been horrified. Should have stood up and walked out. Instead, I asked, and Maria? My brother's widow. She refused my help. Said she didn't want blood money. His mouth twisted. She'd rather die than accept anything from me. But Matteo called me that night, from the hospital. Told me his mother was dying, and some nurse with kind eyes was helping them. Dandy's gaze held mine. He said you sat with him. That you didn't make promises you couldn't keep. My throat tightened. Children see things, adults miss, Dante said softly. He knew you were genuine. So when I walked into that hospital and saw you sitting on the floor with my nephew, holding his hand while his mother fought to survive, he trailed off. I made a decision. What decision? That I would protect you. Whether you wanted it or not. The words hung between us. Heavy with meaning I wasn't ready to examine. I don't need protecting. I said, you're wrong. He leaned forward, and the candlelight caught his face, made him look almost otherworldly. You put yourself on a chessboard without knowing the game. The FBI wants to use you. My enemies want to eliminate any perceived weakness. And you, his voice dropped. You just keep trying to save people. That's my job. No, his hand moved across the table, stopping just short of touching mine. That's who you are. And it's going to get you killed. Before I could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and every line of his body went rigid. What? I asked. He stood abruptly. We need to leave. Now. Why? What? Someone just firebombed your apartment. The world tilted. Sophia got your neighbor out, he continued, already moving. No casualties. But Iris, he looked at me, and I saw something I'd never expected to see in Dante Salvatore's eyes. Fear. This wasn't the FBI, he said. This was a declaration of war. Section 5. The safe Husethi car moved through the city like a bullet. I sat in the back seat, still wearing the emerald dress, watching my entire life disappear in the rearview mirror. My apartment, my job, my careful, controlled existence, all of it, gone. Dante sat beside me, phone pressed to his ear, speaking in rapid Italian. I caught words here and there, Kai, quando, trova, but the meaning slid past me. His voice was different now, harder. The man from dinner had vanished, replaced by something colder, something that matched the gun I'd glimpsed beneath his jacket when he'd helped me into the car. How bad? I finally asked when he ended the call. He looked at me. Bad enough that you can't go back. My things are replaceable. His tone left no room for argument. Your life isn't. We drove for another 20 minutes, leaving the city behind. The buildings gave way to estates, then forests, then a private road that wound through darkness like a snake. The house appeared suddenly, modern glass and stone nestled into the hillside, invisible until you were almost on top of it. Security lights flickered on as we approached, and I saw cameras, sensors, the kind of protection that costs more than most people made in a year. Where are we? I asked. Somewhere safe. Dante opened his door, came around to mine, offered his hand. I took it because my legs felt unsteady, because the adrenaline was finally crashing and taking my composure with it. His fingers closed around mine, warm and solid, and he didn't let go as we walked inside. The interior was nothing like his penthouse. This was a home. Warm woods, soft lighting, furniture that looked lived in rather than displayed, books on shelves, a kitchen that smelled faintly of coffee and something sweet. You live here? I asked. Sometimes. He finally released my hand, and I felt the absence like cold water. When I need to disappear. Sophia emerged from a hallway, tablet in hand. Perimeters secure. Marco's running the surveillance footage from her building. We'll know who set the fire within the hour. The neighbor? Dante asked. Shaken, but fine. We're covering her hotel until the building's cleared. He nodded, and Sophia's eyes cut to me. Something passed between them, a conversation without words. I'll prepare the guest room, Sophia said, and disappeared. I stood in the middle of this beautiful, secret house and felt reality finally crash into me. Someone had tried to kill me, not scare me, not warn me, kill me. My knees buckled. Dante caught me before I hit the floor, his arms solid around my waist, and suddenly I was against his chest, breathing in cedar and smoke and something underneath that was just him. I've got you, he murmured. Breathe, Iris, just breathe. I tried, failed, tried again. I don't understand, I whispered. I just helped a kid. I know. His hand moved to my hair, gentle in a way that didn't match anything else about him. I know. Who would do this? He was quiet for a long moment. Then carefully, he eased me back enough to see my face. His thumb brushed my cheek, and I realized I was crying. I have enemies, he said quietly. People who want to hurt me. And the fastest way to hurt someone like me is to target the people he stopped. Started again. The people they care about. But you don't care about me. You barely know me. Something flickered in his eyes. That's not as true as you think. Before I could process that, he lifted me, just swept me up like I weighed nothing and carried me to a leather couch by the fireplace, set me down gently, disappeared into the kitchen, and returned with water and something amber in a crystal glass. Drink the water, he said. Then the whiskey. Trust me. I did. The whiskey burned, but it cut through the shock, brought feeling back to my numb limbs. Dante sat beside me, not touching, but close enough that I could feel his heat. I need to tell you something, he said, and you're not going to like it. I laughed, bitter and raw. More than I don't like my apartment being firebombed. Yes. He turned to face me fully. I've been having you watched since Tuesday. Since the hospital. The words took a moment to land. Watched. Protected. He corrected. I had people on you, making sure you were safe. The FBI said the FBI doesn't know everything. His jaw tightened. My people are better, quieter, and they reported back to me every day. Where you went, who you spoke to, whether you were in danger. I should have been furious, should have felt violated. Instead, I just felt tired. Why? Because from the moment I saw you in that hallway, sitting with my nephew, I knew you were different. He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, and for the first time since I'd met him, he looked almost uncertain. I knew you'd be targeted, either by the FBI, or by people who'd see you as leverage against me. And I couldn't. He stopped, breathed. I couldn't let that happen. You don't even know me. I know enough. He looked at me, and the intensity in his gaze made my breath catch. I know you risk everything for strangers. I know you don't make promises you can't keep. I know you're terrified right now, but you haven't fallen apart. I'm pretty close. No, his hand moved to my face, cupping my jaw with a gentleness that seemed impossible from someone like him. You're stronger than you think. We sat there, frozen, his thumb tracing my cheekbone like he was memorizing the shape of it. I can't go back to my life, I whispered. No, he agreed. You can't? So what happens now? Danny's eyes held mine, dark and fathomless and full of something I couldn't name. Now, he said softly, you let me keep you safe. And we find out who's willing to start a war over a nurse who saved a little boy's mother. His phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and his entire body went still. What? I asked, but I already knew it was bad from the way his expression shuddered. Marco found the surveillance footage. His voice had gone flat. Dangerous. The person who set the fire. Who? He looked at me, and I saw murder in his eyes. Someone I trusted. Section 6. The betrayalist's name was Vincent. Dante showed me the footage on his phone, grainy security camera images of a man in a dark jacket approaching my building with a backpack. He moved with purpose, no hesitation, like he'd done this before. He's been with my family for 8 years, Dante said. His voice was eerily calm. The kind of calm that preceded violence. His father worked for my father. I trusted him with everything. Why would he? That's what I'm going to find out. He stood, already dialing. Sophia will stay with you. Don't leave this house. Don't go near the windows. Don't open the door for anyone. I finished. I know. He looked at me for a long moment, and I saw the war happening behind his eyes. Whatever he was about to do, part of him didn't want to leave me here. I'll be back before morning, he said finally. Dante. I stood too, the emerald dress whispering around my legs. What are you going to do to him? He didn't answer. Didn't need to. I watched him walk out, watched the door close, and felt something twist in my chest that I absolutely could not afford to feel. Sophia found me an hour later, still sitting on the couch, staring at nothing. Here, she handed me clothes, soft joggers, a cashmere sweater that probably cost more than my rent. You should change, get comfortable. I took them mechanically. He's going to kill Vincent, probably. No hesitation. No sugarcoating. And that doesn't bother you? Sophia sat down across from me, her expression unreadable. Vincent tried to kill you. In Dandy's world that has consequences. In any world that should have consequences, I said. But there's a difference between justice and murder, is there? She tilted her head. You worked in a hospital, Iris. You've seen what the justice system does. How many guilty people walk free? How many innocent people get crushed by bureaucracy and corruption? That doesn't make vigilante killing right. Maybe not. She leaned back. But it makes it effective. I wanted to argue. Wanted to cling to the moral high ground I'd lived on my entire life. But I kept thinking about Maria, dying in that waiting room because the system had decided she wasn't worth saving. About Matteo, offering expired bread because that's all he had. About the fact that Dante had paid for Maria's surgery. Had made sure she lived. About the fact that he was the only reason I was alive right now. The world wasn't as simple as I'd pretended it was. Get some sleep, Sophia said, standing. Tomorrow's going to be complicated. I couldn't sleep. Instead, I showered in a bathroom that was nicer than my entire apartment, changed into the borrowed clothes, and found myself wandering the house. It was beautiful in that restrained way that spoke of money and taste. But there were personal touches too. A photo on the mantle, Dante with a man who had to be his brother, both of them younger, laughing. Matteo as a baby in Maria's arms. Books everywhere. Not for show. Actually read. Spines cracked. Pages dog-eared. I found myself in what had to be his study. Dark wood, leather chairs, a desk covered in papers and maps. I shouldn't have looked. Knew I was crossing a line, but I looked anyway. The papers were in Italian, mostly, but I recognized enough. Names, addresses, financial records. The infrastructure of whatever empire he ran. And underneath it all, a file folder with my name on it. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside were surveillance photos. Me leaving my apartment. Me at the grocery store. Me at the hospital. Dating back weeks before I'd ever met him. Weeks. I told you I'd been watching you. I spun around. Dante stood in the doorway, jacket gone, shirt untucked, blood on his knuckles. You said since Tuesday. I managed. I lied. He walked into the room, and I should have backed away, but I held my ground. I've been watching you for 3 weeks. Since I first heard about the nurse at Stidi, Catherine's, who kept breaking protocol to save people. My heart hammered. Why? Because I was curious. He stopped a few feet away, close enough that I could see the gold flecks in his dark eyes. Because everyone I know operates from self-interest or fear. And you didn't. You just kept saving people, even when it cost you. That's not special. It is special, Iris. He moved closer, and the air between us felt electric. Do you know what I do all day? I manage violence. I negotiate with monsters. I make decisions that destroy lives. And then I heard about you. And I thought. He stopped, breathed. I thought maybe there were still people in this world worth protecting. So you had me. Followed. Yes. You invaded my privacy. Yes. You made me a target. Yes. Something cracked in his expression. And I will spend the rest of my life regretting that. Vincent? I asked quietly. He talked. Danny's voice went flat. He was paid by the Moretti family. They saw you as leverage. A way to hurt me. But why would they think I mattered to you? We'd barely met. Because I made a mistake. He reached up, ran a hand through his hair. I went to the hospital myself. I spoke to you in front of witnesses. I gave you my card. In my world, those gestures mean something. What do they mean? He looked at me, and I saw raw honesty in his eyes. That I'd claimed you. The words hung between us. Heavy and impossible. I didn't ask to be claimed, I whispered. I know. He took another step closer. And now we were inches apart. And if you want to leave, I'll arrange it. New identity, new city, enough money to start over. You'll be safe, and you'll never have to see me again. And if I stay? His jaw tightened. Then you become part of this world, my world. All the violence and danger and darkness that comes with it. And what do I get in return? He lifted his hand, hesitated, then touched my face with fingers still scraped from whatever he'd done to Vincent. Me, he said simply. For whatever that's worth. I should have said no. Should have taken the escape he was offering. Instead, I leaned into his touch and whispered, "Show me, Vincent." His eyes widened. "Iris, if I'm staying," I said, "I need to see what you are. All of it." Dante studied my face. Then slowly, he nodded. "Come with me." Section 7. The Truth and Blood. He drove me to a warehouse on the edge of the city. Neither of us spoke during the drive. Dandy's hands were steady on the wheel, but I could feel the tension radiating from him. This was a test. For both of us. The warehouse was anonymous corrugated metal, broken windows. The kind of place that had been forgotten by everyone except people who needed somewhere no one would look. 2 men stood guard outside. They straightened when they saw Dante, nodded once, and opened the door. Inside smelled like oil and rust and something darker. Fear. Vincent was tied to a chair in the center of the empty space, illuminated by a single bare bulb. His face was bruised, split lip, but he was conscious. When he saw Dante, something flickered in his eyes, not defiance. Resignation. "Boss," he said. His voice was thick, broken. Dante said nothing, just walked forward until he stood directly in front of Vincent, looking down at him with an expression I couldn't read. "Tell her," Dante said quietly. "Tell her why you tried to kill her." Vincent's eyes cut to me, and I saw genuine remorse there. That surprised me. "The Morettis offered me 200,000, he said. Said if I eliminated Danny's new interest, they'd set me up for life, give me my own territory. And you believed them?" Dandy's voice was soft, deadly. "I believed I was tired of being second tier." Vincent's jaw tightened. "I've been loyal for 8 years. Dante, 8 years of watching you give the good positions to your inner circle while I ran errands like a goddamn messenger boy. You were being groomed," Dante said. "Another 2 years and you would have had your own operation." 2 years. Vincent laughed, bitter. "I'm 34 years old. How long was I supposed to wait?" "As long as it took." Dante crouched down. I level with Vincent now. "Because this life isn't about what you want. It's about what you earn. And you just threw away everything you'd built for a lie." The Morettis whispered in your ear. "They showed me proof," Vincent said. "Photos of you with her, leaving the hospital, at your penthouse. They said you were getting soft, that she was making you weak." Danny's hand shot out, gripped Vincent's jaw, forced him to look at me. "Does she look like a weakness?" he asked. "Or does she look like the woman you tried to murder?" Vincent's eyes met mine, and I saw the moment it hit him. The reality of what he'd done. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I didn't think." "No," Dante interrupted. "You didn't think. You just acted." And now he released. Vincent's jaw stood. "Now I have a problem." He turned to me. "The rules of my world are simple, Iris. Betrayal is punished by death. Always. No exceptions. Because the moment you make an exception, you show weakness. And weakness gets people killed, so kill him, I said. My voice was steadier than I felt. Danny's eyes widened slightly. You want me to? I want you to tell me the truth. I moved closer, close enough that I could see the blood still crusted on Danny's knuckles. If you let him live, what happens? The Morettis see mercy as weakness. They'll send someone else. And they won't stop until either I'm dead or you are. And if you kill him, they'll still come. But they'll know the cost. Dandy's jaw tightened. And everyone else who works for me will know what happens when you betray the family. I looked at Vincent. At this man who'd tried to burn me alive for money and status and wounded pride. I should hate you, I said to him. I should want you dead. I know, Vincent whispered. But I worked in emergency medicine for 5 years, I continued. I've seen what violence does. The children who come in with gunshot wounds. The women beaten by men who claim to love them. The gang members who die bleeding out on my floor because someone decided their life was worth less than territory or respect or revenge. I turned back to Dante. I can't be part of that. I can't watch you kill someone and pretend it doesn't change everything. Something in his expression cracked. Then you're asking me to choose. Yes, between you and my family's safety. Between who you are and who you want to be. Dante was silent for a long moment. The warehouse felt airless, trapped. Then he pulled out his phone and made a call. Marco, he said. Prepare extraction. I want Vincent out of the country by dawn. New identity, new life. But if he ever sets foot on this continent again, kill him on sight. He hung up. Looked at Vincent. You're getting a gift you don't deserve, Dante said quietly. Because the woman you tried to murder has more mercy in her than I ever will. You're going to disappear. You're going to live. And you're going to spend the rest of your life knowing that she's the only reason you're still breathing. Vincent's eyes filled with tears. Thank you. Don't thank me, Dante said. I'm not the one who saved you. Marco appeared with 2 other men. They cut Vincent's bonds, hauled him to his feet. One more thing, Dante said, and his voice went cold. The Morettis? Who hired you? Give Marco their names. Every single one. Because they're not getting the same mercy. Vincent nodded and was led away. And then it was just us, standing in this warehouse that smelled like violence, surrounded by the ghosts of decisions that would haunt us both. You made me weak, Dante said finally, not accusing, just stating a fact. Good, I whispered. Because you were making me something I don't recognize. He moved to me then, fast, and his hands cupped my face with desperate gentleness. I can't promise you safety, he said. I can't promise you normal, but I can promise you this: I will never lie to you. I will never hide what I am, and I will destroy anyone who tries to hurt you. That's not what I want. I know. His forehead touched mine, but it's all I know how to give. I closed my eyes, breathed him in. Then teach me your world, I said, and I'll teach you mine. And maybe somewhere between violence and mercy, we'll find something worth saving. His lips brushed mine, soft, questioning. I kissed him back, and everything changed. Section 8. The War Council kiss broke something open between us, or maybe it sealed something closed. I wasn't sure anymore. Dante pulled back first, his breath unsteady, hands still cradling my face like I was something precious and breakable. We should go, he said. This place isn't safe. But he didn't move. Neither did I. We stood there in that warehouse, surrounded by the evidence of his world, the chair where Vincent had been tied, the blood on the concrete floor. The weapons I knew were hidden in the shadows, and for the first time since this started, I felt the full weight of what I was choosing. This wasn't a romance. This was a war, and I'd just enlisted. We returned to the safe house as dawn broke over the hills. Sophia was waiting in the kitchen with coffee and a grim expression. The Morettis know Vincent talked. They've gone to ground. How many did he give us? Dante asked, pouring coffee. Like we hadn't just kissed in a warehouse. Like the world hadn't shifted on its axis. 7 names. 3 soldiers to captains, 1 underboss. Sophia slid a tablet across the counter. And this. Dante looked at the screen, and I watched his face go stone. What is it? I asked. He turned the tablet so I could see. A photograph. Maria and Matteo, leaving what looked like a grocery store. The photo had been taken yesterday. They're watching my family, Dante said. His voice was quiet, lethal. They're threatening a child. We've already moved them, Sophia said quickly. Marco has them at the estate upstate. Triple security. But Dante, she hesitated. They're sending a message. This isn't just about Iris anymore. They're challenging your authority. Then I'll remind them why that's a mistake. How? I asked. Both of them looked at me like they'd forgotten I was there. This is family business, Sophia started. She's part of the family now. Danny's words were simple, absolute. She stays. Sophia's eyebrows rose, but she nodded. Then she needs to understand what's coming. They laid it out for me over coffee and pastries that tasted like ash in my mouth. The Moretti family controlled the southern docks. Drug trafficking, weapons, human cargo, all the things that funded their empire. They'd been rivals with the Salvatoris for 3 generations, and an easy truce maintained by mutual deterrence. But truces are only as strong as the people who enforce them, Dante explained. When my father died 2 years ago, the Morettis saw an opportunity. They've been testing our boundaries ever since, and Vincent was another test, I said. No, he leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled. Vincent was a declaration. They're saying they can reach me anywhere. That nothing I care about is safe. So what do? I show them they're wrong. Sophia pulled up a map on the tablet. We've identified the Moretti holding company that funnels their dock operations. It's technically legitimate imports and exports, but it's how they move everything. So we take it, Dante said. We can't just take it, Sophia countered. We need leverage. Something that forces them to the negotiating table before this turns into an all-out war. What about the FBI? I asked. They both looked at me. What about them? Dante asked carefully. They came to me because they want information on you. But they must have files on the Morettis, too. If the Morettis are trafficking humans, the FBI would want to know about that. Sophia's eyes narrowed. You're suggesting we feed the Morettis to the feds. I'm suggesting we use every weapon we have. I met Dandy's gaze. You said you'd never lie to me about what you are. Well, I won't lie to you either. I can't be part of killing people, but I can be part of stopping human trafficking. Dante was quiet for a long moment. Then slowly, he smiled. It was genuine, warm, and it transformed his entire face. You're terrifying, he said. You know that? I'm practical. No, he reached across the table, took my hand. You're brilliant. The plan came together over the next 6 hours. Sophia would contact a source in the FBI, not Morrison or Chen, someone higher up who owed the Salvatoris a favor. They'd provide information on the Moretti trafficking operation in exchange for immunity and cooperation. Dante would reach out to his contacts in the other families, make it clear that the Morettis had broken protocol by threatening children, and I would call Agent Morrison. Tell him you want to cooperate, Dante instructed. Tell him you're afraid, that you'll testify, that you'll give them whatever they need. But you want protection, real protection. And then we feed them information that leads them to the Morettis. Not to us. It felt dangerous, duplicitous, wrong in ways I couldn't articulate. It also felt like the only way to stop this without more bloodshed. I made the call at sunset. Morrison answered on the second ring. Miss Callahan, I've been trying to reach you. I know. I'm sorry. Things have been. I let my voice shake. It wasn't hard. Complicated. Where are you? Somewhere safe. Mr. Salvatore is protecting me. A pause. He's protecting you. Someone burned down my apartment, Agent Morrison. Someone tried to kill me. So yes, I accepted his help, Miss Callahan, but I want to cooperate. I interrupted. I want to tell you everything I know. I want protection and immunity and a life that doesn't involve looking over my shoulder. What do you know? Not over the phone. I glanced at Dante, who nodded. Meet me tomorrow, noon, the Botanical Gardens downtown. Come alone. I can't promise, then I can't promise to show up, I said. Noon, alone, or I disappear, and you lose your only way into Salvatore's world. I hung up before he could respond. My hands were shaking. Dante took the phone from me, set it aside, pulled me into his arms. You did perfectly, he murmured into my hair. I just lied to a federal agent. Yes, I'm officially a criminal now. Welcome to the family. He pulled back, tilted my chin up so I had to look at him. Last chance, Iris. We can still get you out, still give you that new life. I thought about Maria and Matteo, about the children trafficked through Moretti's docks, about Vincent, who'd been given mercy he didn't deserve, about the man holding me, who'd chosen my conscience over his code. I'm exactly where I want to be, I said. He kissed me then, deep and desperate and full of promises neither of us knew if we could keep. Outside, the war was coming. Inside, for just this moment, we pretended we were safe. Section 9. The Garden of Suspense. The botanical gardens were beautiful in a way that felt obscene. Cherry blossoms drifted through the air like snow, and couples walked hand in hand down paths lined with tulips and hyacinths. Children laughed. Birds sang. The world continued turning. Oblivious to the fact that I was about to betray a federal agent to protect a crime lord, Dante hadn't wanted me to come alone. "I'll have people everywhere," he'd said that morning. His hands on my shoulders, eyes searching my face. "You won't see them, but they'll be watching. If anything goes wrong, nothing will go wrong. Iris," he'd pulled me close, pressed his forehead to mine. "Promise me you'll run if you need to. Promise me you won't try to be brave." I promise. I'd lied. Now I sat on a bench near the rose garden, wearing jeans and a sweater that hid the panic crawling up my spine, and waited. Morrison arrived exactly at noon. He wasn't alone. Agent Chen walked 3 paces behind him, eyes scanning the crowd, and I felt my stomach drop. But I forced myself to stay seated, to look relieved rather than terrified. "Miss Callahan." Morrison sat beside me. Chen remained standing, a silent threat. "You look well." "I'm alive," I said. "That's more than I expected to be. Your apartment was firebombed by someone working for the Moretti family." I watched his expression shift. "Not Dante Salvatore, his rival." "And you know this how?" "Because Salvatore told me. Because he's been protecting me." I took a breath. He showed me surveillance footage. The man who set the fire was named Vincent Crusoe. He was paid by the Morettis to eliminate me. Morrison exchanged a look with Chen. "Where is Vincent Crusoe now?" "I don't know. Dante dealt with him." "Dealt with him?" "Yes." I met his eyes. "And before you ask, no. I don't know if he's alive or dead. I don't want to know." Morrison leaned back. "Miss Callahan, do you understand what you're telling me? You're admitting to knowledge of a potential murder. I'm telling you that the Morettis are targeting civilians to start a gang war, that they're using human trafficking and drug smuggling to fund their operations, and that if you want to stop them, I can help you." Chen moved closer. "In exchange for what?" "Immunity, protection, and you leave Dante Salvatore alone." "That's not." "He saved my life," I interrupted. "Multiple times. Whatever he's done, whatever crimes you think you can pin on him, you do it without my testimony." Morrison studied me for a long moment. "You're in love with him." The words hit harder than I expected. Was I? I thought about Dandy's hands on my face in the warehouse. The way he'd chosen mercy because I'd asked him to. The way he'd kissed me, like I was the answer to a question he'd been asking his whole life. "Yes," I said quietly. "I think I am." "Then you're compromised, maybe." I pulled out a folded piece of paper from my pocket, handed it to Morrison. "Or maybe I'm the only one who can give you what you actually want." He unfolded it. "Read." His eyes widened. "Where did you get this?" "Does it matter?" It was a manifest. Shipping routes, dates, locations, everything the FBI would need to intercept a Moretti trafficking operation scheduled for tomorrow night. "This is," Morrison looked at me. "This is actionable intelligence." "Yes, and there's more where that came from. But only if you agree to my terms." Chen crouched down beside the bench. "Miss Callahan, you need to understand something. The information you're providing, it makes you an accessory. It makes you complicit in Salvatore's organization." "I'm already complicit," I said. "The moment I helped Maria, I became part of this. So I'm choosing which side I want to be on. The side that stops human trafficking, or the side that lets it continue because you're too focused on taking down one man." Morrison folded the paper carefully. "I need to make a call." "Make it fast," I said. "The shipment arrives at 10 p.m. tomorrow. After that, this information is worthless." He walked away, phone to his ear. Chen stayed, watching me like I was a puzzle he couldn't solve. "You're making a mistake," he said. "Probably. He's using you." "Maybe." I looked at him. "Or maybe I'm using him. Maybe we're using each other to do something that actually matters. Nothing good comes from getting involved with men like Salvatore." I thought about Matteo, alive because his mother had been saved. About Vincent, breathing air somewhere far away because I'd asked for mercy. About the people who would be rescued tomorrow night if Morrison took the deal. "You're wrong," I said. "Sometimes good comes from the strangest places." Morrison came back 10 minutes later. "My superiors agree to your terms," he said. "Contingent on the intelligence being accurate." "It is, and you'll continue to provide information on Moretti operations." "Yes, but nothing on Salvatore." "Nothing on Salvatore." I confirmed. He sat down again, and for the first time, I saw something that might have been respect in his eyes. You're playing a dangerous game. Miss Callahan, I know. The Morettis will figure out someone's feeding us information. They'll come after you. Let them try. Morrison stood. We'll have agents at the dock tomorrow night. If this goes wrong, it won't. He walked away, Chen following, and I sat alone on the bench surrounded by flowers and families and normalcy. My phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. Well done. Car waiting at the east entrance. I walked through the gardens on legs that felt disconnected from my body. Everything was too bright, too beautiful, too surreal. The car was black, windows tinted. The door opened. Dante sat inside, and the relief in his eyes when he saw me was almost painful. Come here, he said. I climbed in, and he pulled me against him, arms tight around my waist, face buried in my hair. I heard every word he murmured. You were perfect. You were. His voice broke. Iris. Just my name. But the way he said it contained everything. I tilted my head back, found his mouth, kissed him with all the fear and adrenaline and reckless hope flooding through me. Tomorrow night, I whispered against his lips. We end this. Tomorrow night, he agreed, but neither of us mentioned what would come after. Neither of us dared. Section 10. The reckoning raid happened at 9:47 p.m. We watched from a warehouse rooftop 3 blocks away, Danny's arm around my waist. Sophia beside us with binoculars and a radio connection to her people on the ground. The FBI moved like a coordinated machine, black SUVs blocking exits, tactical teams swarming the dock, helicopters circling overhead with spotlights that turned night into day. There, Sophia said, handing me the binoculars. Second container from the left. I looked. They were bringing people out. Women, mostly. Some children. Wrapped in thermal blankets, stumbling, crying, alive. My throat tightened. 18 souls, Dante said quietly. 18 people who would have disappeared into brothels and labor camps if you hadn't made that call. We made that call, I corrected. His hand tightened on my waist. No, Iris. This was you. I would have just killed the Morettis and called it justice. Would that have saved those people? No, then this was better. Below, FBI agents were leading 3 men in handcuffs toward waiting vehicles. I recognized one of them from the photos Sophia had shown me. Carlo Moretti, the underboss. The man who'd ordered the hit on me. He looked smaller than I'd imagined. Almost pathetic. That's not all of them, Dante said, reading my thoughts. The head of the family, Nico Moretti, he wasn't there. He's too smart to be near the operations, so he's still a threat, for now. Sophia's radio crackled. A voice spoke in rapid Italian. She responded, then lowered it. Marco says the families are talking, she reported. Words already spreading that the Morettis got sloppy, that they exposed themselves. The commission is calling an emergency meeting. When? Dante asked. Tomorrow night, he nodded slowly. Then tomorrow we finish this. We drove back to the safe house in silence. I watched the city slide past lights and shadows. People living their normal lives, unaware that 18 souls had just been saved. That a crime family was crumbling, that the balance of power was shifting in ways they'd never see. What happens at this meeting? I asked finally. The commission heads of the 5 families, they'll discuss the Moretti situation. The trafficking bust, the attack on you, the threats against Matteo. Dandy's jaw tightened. They'll vote on whether the Morettis violated the code, and if they did, then the family is dissolved, territory redistributed, leadership executed or exiled, the clinical way. He said. It made my skin cold. You'll vote to dissolve them, I said. Not a question. Yes, because of me, because of what they did, the woman they targeted, the child they threatened, the laws they broke. He looked at me. You just gave me the ammunition I needed to end this without starting a war. We pulled into the driveway. Dante killed the engine, but didn't move to get out. After tomorrow, he said carefully, things will change. The Moretti territory will be absorbed. I'll have more responsibility, more enemies, more reasons for people to target what I care about, meaning me, meaning you. He turned in his seat, taking both my hands. I can still get you out, Iris. New identity, new city, enough money to never worry again. You could go back to saving lives without looking over your shoulder. Is that what you want? What I want is irrelevant. That's not an answer. His eyes met mine, dark and desperate. What I want is to keep you. To wake up with you every morning and fall asleep with you every night. To introduce you to my family and watch you save the world one person at a time, while I protect you from the shadows. His voice dropped. But I won't trap you in this life if it's not what you choose. I thought about my apartment gone, my job gone, my carefully constructed normal life shattered beyond repair. And then I thought about Maria alive, about those 18 people freed tonight, about Vincent breathing somewhere because mercy had won over vengeance, about the man in front of me who'd learned to choose differently because I'd asked him to. I choose you, I said. I choose this. All of it. Iris, I'm not finished. I squeezed his hands. But I have conditions. I won't be a trophy or a victim. If I'm part of your world, I'm actually part of it. I want to know what's happening. I want a voice in decisions that affect lives. And I want to keep finding ways to use your power for something good. A slow smile spread across his face. You want to reform me. I want to partner with you. There's a difference. He pulled me across the console into his lap, hands cradling my face with that devastating gentleness that undid me every time. You terrify me, he whispered. You walked into my life and changed everything. Made me question things I'd never questioned. Made me want things I'd never wanted. Like what? Like a future that isn't just survival. Like maybe redemption is possible even for someone like me. He kissed me softly. Like love, the word hung between us, fragile and powerful. Dante, I love you. Iris Callahan. I loved you the moment I saw you sitting on that hospital floor with my nephew. I loved you when you asked me to spare Vincent. I loved you when you stood in that warehouse and refused to look away from what I am. His thumb traced my cheekbone. And I'll love you through whatever comes next. I kissed him instead of answering. Poured everything I felt into that kiss, all the fear and hope and desperate, reckless love that had grown in the spaces between violence and mercy. When we finally broke apart, I whispered against his lips, tomorrow night. We end the Morettis. Tomorrow night, he agreed. And then we start building something new. The next evening, Dante left for the commission meeting wearing a perfectly tailored black suit and carrying the weight of everything we'd built together. I waited at the safe house with Sophia, drinking coffee that tasted like anxiety, watching the clock tick toward midnight. My phone buzzed at 11:43 p.m. It's done. The Morettis are finished. Come home. Not to the safe house. Home. I looked at Sophia. She smiled, actually smiled, and nodded toward the door. Go, she said. He's been waiting his whole life for someone like you. Dante was waiting on the penthouse balcony when I arrived. The city spread below him like a kingdom he'd fought to protect. He turned when he heard me, and I saw everything in his face: triumph and exhaustion and relief and love. I walked into his arms, and he held me like I was the only thing keeping him anchored to earth. Tell me, I whispered. Unanimous vote. The Moretti family is dissolved. Nico Moretti has 48 hours to leave the country or face execution. He pulled back to look at me. It's over, Iris. You're safe. We're safe. I corrected. We're safe, he agreed. And there, on that balcony overlooking a city full of secrets and shadows, we kissed like we had all the time in the world. Because maybe, against all odds, we did. Epilogue. 6 months later, I stood in the newly opened Salvatore Community Clinic, watching Maria check in patients while Matteo did homework in the waiting room. Dante had funded it. I ran it. Together, we were building something that existed between his world and mine, a place where people could get help without questions, where lives could be saved without bureaucracy or insurance or judgment. He appeared in the doorway, still wearing his suit from whatever meeting he'd just left, and smiled at me with something that looked like peace. Ready to go home? He asked. I took his hand. Yes, I said. Let's go home. And we did.